fired up. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kyle Mox. I'm Associate Dean for National Scholarships at Arizona State University, and I am the Director of the Lorraine W. Frank Office of National Scholarships Advisement, commonly referred to as ONSA. So this is the last part of our four-part Fellowships Fridays in February series, and it's a broad introduction to global fellowships, which is a huge proportion of what we do. So the programs we'll be talking about today are a variety of programs that are going to support international experiences of some kind, whether that's study, research, or internships or practical experiences, or set you up for international careers. Just to clarify, and I've recognized a couple names here, so you've probably been through this slide multiple times before, but when we say national scholarships, I always want to make it understood that what we're talking about are external awards. So these are awards not offered specifically to ASU students. They're offered to students from all over the country. They're all merit-based in some way, shape, or form. There are a couple that have other preferences or other minor eligibility criteria, but even then, there is review involved. There's subjective review by committees. These are all competitive awards that are offered to everyone in the US. So what that means is that they're very competitive. And therefore, it's incredibly useful to get assistance from ONSA as you're preparing applications. Because they're so competitive, they are therefore also prestigious, meaning that if it's difficult to get, it's something worth bragging about on your resume. And furthermore, because the funding is coming from outside of ASU, it's going to help propel you into a career, be beneficial. Experience is a big part of all of these programs that we're talking about. So not only do you get the benefit of the financial award, but you also get the benefit of the prestige, which will help open doors later on, but also you've just become a better person because of the experience that you get through a fellowship. So in terms of what we do, when I said, if you're going to apply for any of these, you probably should be working with us. And everything I'm mentioning here today is an award that we provide advising for. There are multiple other national scholarships and fellowships out there, but if they're not in our database or I haven't mentioned it today, it's not necessarily that we don't know anything about it. It's just we have to focus our work to be most effective, but you can bring them to us. Every year, students bring an award and say, hey, I discovered this scholarship. Do you work with it? I'm like, no, but we're happy to start with you. So, what we're doing now, that's a big part of our work, is we provide information to students, and our biggest challenge is getting the right information to the right student at the right time. We have more participatory webinars about topics like this or focused on specific fellowships. And we also do a lot of workshops, which are more participatory in nature and help people getting writing or get feedback on their work. Most of our time is less visible. However, we are actually spending time individually one-on-one working with candidates as they're working on applications, just helping them develop a good strategy for application, but also once they get started, going through multiple drafts of the essays for their applications. And that includes a lot of writing instruction, right? We can help get you started. We can help you revise and edit. And we can also help you prepare for interviews. There's an interview component that goes along with that scholarship. Anything that requires nomination is done through us. So any of the awards out there that you have to be nominated by ASU in order to be eligible, we will manage that process. We coordinate the committees, and then we also work with faculty to be good mentors to you and also write you excellent letters of recommendation. So in terms of global fellowships, the focus of today's presentation, and we're looking for a wide variety, the criteria I used to decide, what to talk about today. Obviously, it's going to fund a study abroad experience of some kind, right? And some of these are short-term programs, just a few weeks. Others are much longer, maybe as long as a semester or an entire academic year. Some are even longer than that, 2 or 3 years. Some of them include funding for graduate study. Others are just providing experience. Many of them are focused on language training. So, as we get into the most common question is, am I a good candidate for this award? Because all of these awards are coming from all of these different places. Some of them are coming from federal agencies. Some of them are coming from international nonprofit organizations, foreign governments, all over the place. There's no unity to the criteria, right? Each award is looking for something different. Each award has different eligibility criteria, but also selection preferences. And so that's a big part of what our job is to help you navigate that and figure out what a good candidate is for a given award. So some of them are extraordinarily competitive and have very high expectations for academic performance and leadership. Others are more focused on the quality of character and what you're doing and what your objectives are, right? And aren't so necessarily focused on what your GPA is. So that's part of what we'll try to do is figuring out. But all of them are mission driven. That's the important thing to keep in mind. So a big part of what we do is audience analysis, thinking, okay, who's reading this? Why are they offering this award? What are their values and priorities? What are they looking for in a candidate? And try to make sure that you're presenting that to them. So our website has a number of resources. If you're just getting started with your fellowships journey, there's just a getting started page, which kind of introduces some of the concepts and goes over some of the things I just spoke about. You can subscribe to our weekly bulletin if you haven't already. That's a great way to stay abreast of information, deadlines, upcoming info sessions, things like that. And you can see that there's also a way to book an appointment, right? You can book, you don't have to reach out and ask if I'm available. You can just get online and schedule meetings and access our calendars yourself. You'll also notice there's a scholarships tab there, and you can use this as a modest search engine to search through all of the programs that we promote. And you can start to narrow down and generate a list of potential fellowships that you'd like to apply for. What typically happens is you'll come in with a list of 5 and leave with 3 more. And, chances are good once we, start to zero in on what types of scholarships interest you, we'll be able to identify additional scholarships that might help support your goals. So I've broken the list today into 2 large groups: undergraduate awards, meaning awards that you would apply for that would occur or take place or complete while you're still an undergraduate student. And then the other category will be postgraduate awards, meaning awards that would take place after you finished your bachelor's degree. You may apply for them while you're still an undergraduate student, but they would start once you finished your bachelor's degree. So that's the basic way we've divvied up. The first one I want to start with is probably our most fundamental program, the Gilman Scholarship, which simply funds study abroad. So in its simplest form, you would pick an ASU study abroad program, apply for the Gilman, and they would provide up to $5,000 to help pay for that. The key to know is that the main criterion, because this is a federal award, is U.S. citizenship and also be the recipient of a Pell grant. So they're looking to support financially needy students, but also to identify and support students who are historically underrepresented in study abroad opportunities, which is quite a list, right? It could be non-traditional students, students who are first-generation college students, students in STEM majors, veterans, current military, students with disabilities, wide range of things, right? The cool thing about Gilman is that there's 2 deadlines per year. And so what that means is that you can apply in the October cycle or the March cycle, depending on when your planned study abroad is. Now, the earliest deadline is cool because if you're doing a summer or a fall study abroad, you could apply in October and maybe get it or not get it, but you've done a practice run and they can reapply in March. So as you can see, the next deadline, if you're considering Gilman, would be coming up pretty soon, March 9, and we're advising students on that right now. I do see a hand up. So Javni, do you have a question about Gilman?
Yeah, so I'm a senior right now and I'll graduate this spring. So I was wondering if I'll be able to get Gilman as an alumni who wants to do a study abroad in May or summer.
So the other criterion for Gilman would be that it needs to be credit bearing. So whatever the experience is, whether it's an internship or even classwork or a study abroad program, as long as it's earning you academic credit, it's eligible for Gilman.
Got it. Thank you.
Good question. Yeah, that was a minor bullet point I didn't include on there, but yeah, Gilman, and our rate of success with students who work with us in Gilman is quite high, as close, actually over 50% in the last cycle. And so this is a really great way to start if you're looking for just simple study abroad funding. Another award that we have done a lot of work with in recent years is the Fulbright UK Summer Institutes, or UKSI, but these are shorter term, 3 to 5 weeks in the summer. The neat thing about these is they're open only to first and second year students. You'll realize that there are relatively few awards open to first-year students, a few more for second-year students, and it gets easier as you move along. So this one's unusual in that way. They're looking for academically high-achieving students who have very limited travel experience outside of North America. So if you've spent time in Mexico or Canada, that's fine. But if you had a lot of travel experience besides that, then you might not be a good candidate. And so the number and types of institutes vary, and I think this summer there are, I want to say, 4 different institutes, each of which is focused on a topical center, so to speak. So Maggie here did one in Bristol that was focused on arts and activism, which is a pretty cool experience because she was if I remember, a theater double major. So like theater, dance, I think dance and political science or something, or dance and global studies, something like that. So yeah. Killam Fellowship, also a Fulbright program. This one's sponsored by Fulbright Canada, and we'll talk more about Fulbright later on. But Fulbright is an umbrella program sponsored by the U.S. Department of State that encourages educational exchange, right? So this one is actually sponsored by the Fulbright Canada Commission, Canadian Fulbright Commission in Canada, and what it is actual semester, full semester exchanges at Canadian universities. So essentially, you would pay your ASU tuition, your financial aid, whatever you have, stays in place. And then you spend that term at a Canadian university. They kick in an extra $5,000 to help with other costs associated, so on and so forth. They'll give you a little travel money, and even a little money to help with what they call a service project or a social activist project or something like that. And then you get together with all of the Killam Fellows, both the Canadian ones who come to the US and the Americans who are in Canada, in Ottawa, at the start of the year, and DC at the end of the year. And so because it's an exchange program, they're looking for people to have great ambassadorial potential, and also who can give a good reason for why spending a term in Canada would be helpful to what it is they're trying to do with themselves. So as long as you have study remaining, you can apply for this. So you could apply towards the end of your career or at the beginning at ASU. Critical languages scholarship. So this is one of the broad category, what we would just simply call the critical languages fellowships. This one is easy to forget because it's sort of generically named, but this is a Department of State program, and it funds 8 to 10 week intensive group-based language training programs around the world. They designate which languages are available. So the list is pretty stable. We're at 14 languages right now. That first grouping, Azerbaijani through Turkish, or excuse me, through Urdu, no previous studies required. You can come in as an absolute beginner and really get a chance to elevate your language proficiency much more quickly than you would in a traditional academic setting here in the US. If you have previous study of Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, or Russian, you can also select one of those programs. It's an annual deadline, November every year. That's for the following summer. And so if this is one that you're considering, we do have a faculty mentor in our office who works specifically on this award. It's a great program for us. A larger, I would say, more in-depth version of CLS is the Boren. And so the Boren Scholarship for undergraduates is looking to fund 20 to 25 week or longer, that is to say 6 month or longer, focused programs. And so instead of being in a cohort with a group of other students who were selected for the program, you are choosing a program abroad in another country focused on some foreign language acquisition. It needs to be non-Western European, so English, Spanish, German, French, not on the list unless you want to do French in Senegal. The emphasis is on national security, meaning that the federal government is looking to increase the number of people who are proficient in these languages and also familiar with the host country cultures, right? And ideally entice them to work in the federal government. So if you're already thinking about a career in Department of State, any other federal agency, intelligence community, anything to do with the federal government, this is a great program because they actually they require you to work for a year whenever you're done with your education, but they'll also help you find a job and you get veterans preference in the hiring process, which means that your application gets looked at before the general pool. So if that's, if you're somebody who is looking at a federal career anyway, you're interested in languages, really great program because it has ongoing benefits. So we actually just finished the cycle for this year and are awaiting results. And so looking ahead. The one exception to what I said at the beginning about awards that are not unique to ASU, so the FLAS, this is a national scholarship, but the awards are given to universities to give to their students. So we received this Department of State funding at ASU recently, just this last year, to provide very generous fellowships to people that are interested in studying what I would call the Malikian languages. If you're familiar with the Malikian Center for East Asian, Slavic, and Russian Studies, and their area of responsibility does include Central Asia and East Europe and a lot of the Balkan countries. So if you're interested in studying these languages, you can get funding for summer or for the academic year, as long as your academic experience includes study of one of these languages. And then if your study abroad program that you're looking at is in Asia and would include Asian study, there's another program through the Department of State called Freeman Asia, which provides very generous funding for Asian language study. I included the Voyager on here, which is an interesting one because it's new, and two, it's not necessarily specifically for language, or excuse me, foreign study. It's a general fellowship from the Obama Foundation in partnership with Aaron Chesky, who's the founder of Airbnb. Interesting partnership there. But they want to support promising leaders, people that are going to have a positive impact on some social issue or cause in their career. And so they provide very generous funding of up to $50,000 to fund your last 2 years of undergraduate. But I included it because the Voyager part of it is that they provide a $10,000 stipend to help you do a summer voyage that's sort of topical and global in nature between your junior and senior year. And this is completely unique in fellowships. So they offer ongoing funding of $2,000 a year for 10 years for you to continue to do international travel. And obviously you get free access to Airbnbs, which is cool, right? They do a leadership conference. You get to meet President Obama, and it's only open to rising juniors. So people that are about to be juniors next year, and that deadline's coming up. It's actually, I want to say March 22 this year. This will only be the second cycle for it. Last year was the first cycle for it. We actually had, ASU had 2 winners out of the first 100 that they awarded, which is phenomenal, unbelievable. So Einar was one of those 2 winners, and we can connect you with previous applicants if you'd like to know more. Another group I want to focus on are ones that are more experiential or research focused in nature. So the DAAD-RISE, which is the German Academic Exchange Service, DAAD. And what they do is they provide summer research experiences for students in STEM. They'll publish a list of potential projects every year, and you can select from them and try to match up ones that are close to your own interests and studies. As long as you're, again, returning to your studies once you finish the DAAD summer, you can apply. Obviously, you need to be a STEM major who is interested in research. And it's not specifically for US citizens. You can be Canadian, UK, or Irish, or you can be any other nationality who is studying in the US. So you can even be a German who is studying in the US. But yeah, that's been a big program for us. We had probably about 80 applicants this year for that. And results are coming out as we speak. So if you hear shouting and yelling from the ONSA suite, that's why. Another new program, we actually just had a winner for this, and that's why I don't have a picture. You'll notice I have pictures of ASU winners for all these different awards. I don't have one yet because we just had our first winner and she hasn't yet gone to Canada. But this is much like the DAAD. It is a summer research experience. It's not specifically for STEM, although many of the programs are STEM, but there are also programs in the humanities and I believe social sciences. It's open to US citizens. It's also through the Fulbright Canadian Fulbright Commission. And you must have some study remaining as well. And it works pretty much like the DAAD. Well, they'll try to match you with a research project that aligns with your interests. So Canada, still a foreign country, not perhaps as far away as Germany. So shifting topics a little bit, I want to talk about postgraduate awards. So these are ones that you would apply for or plan to apply for in your final year of undergraduate study, or within a couple, 1 or 2 years of graduating. We do provide support for recent alumni as well. And so don't think just because you're not a student at ASU anymore, if you were a student and graduated, you can still use our services as well. The one at the top of the list I'll just start with is Fulbright. We're about to enter into Fulbright season. This is the largest and most comprehensive global exchange program in the world. The US student program specifically is, it selects about 2,000 students a year, both incoming and outgoing, for year-long educational exchange. You can choose from 150 different countries, and in terms of what you do with a Fulbright, it's ultimately up to you. There are two main types of programs: where study research, where you can design a project of your own choosing. You can choose to engage in a more of a study project, or you can even do a graduate degree award or a creative performing arts project or experience, right? The other type of award are the English teaching assistantships, where you would be an ambassador in an English language classroom. You're there as a native English speaker and an American to help support a primary teacher. Really great experience if you're just looking for to improve your cultural competency and international experience. If you want to know everything there is to know about Fulbright and the process at ASU, register for our Fulbright Day event, which is coming up at the end of March. Even if you can't make that specific event, it's going to be both in person and Zoom hybrid. It'll include a panel of previous winners, current international Fulbrighters who are here at ASU. Great way to get started. Application opens the following day. And from there, we'll actually start doing our intake meetings. So right after that first Friday after Fulbright Day, we'll do Fulbright Fridays, where we'll zero in on a specific topic in a webinar. We'll start taking people in for, basically intake advising means that we are going to determine your grant type and your target country, and then start to put together a plan for you to apply. We have a campus deadline in September. The final deadline is in October. We do put you through interviews with our campus committee, who both, assess you, but also help you prepare your final draft. And so throughout the summer, we are advising students heavily on their application materials. We run anywhere from 60 to 85 applicants a year. I wouldn't be surprised if we're over 90 applicants this year. So you can imagine it's quite a big undertaking. But one of the marquee programs, we're actually, ASU this year was one of only 9 universities in the United States that was a top producer of both Fulbright Student Awards and Fulbright Scholar Awards. So it's a big program for us. We're a global university, right? The other cluster of fellowships that we're about to be starting on are the postgraduate awards in the UK or Ireland. So these are awards that are very competitive. They're looking for really high achieving students with significant leadership and service experiences. The Marshall Scholarship is 2 years of graduate study at any university in the UK. And what most recipients do is actually complete 2 master's degrees at 2 different universities, which is an interesting way to combine interests, right? Graduate study in the UK is a little different than the US. It's respected and highly regarded just the same as a master's degree in the US would be, but their academic calendar is a little bit different. And then they also expect a slightly higher level of specialization, right, than what American bachelor's degree students have. And so if you are specialized already, if you've found a focus, right, this is a great way to finish a master's degree in just 1 year. Similarly, the Mitchell Scholarship would take you to anything on the island of Ireland. So that would include Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, or the Republic of Ireland. And then the Fulbright program, which I mentioned just a moment ago, could support graduate degree completion in the UK or Ireland. And they actually are affixed to specific universities in the UK or Ireland. Other awards in this broader category would include, of course, things like the Rhodes Scholarship, but that's for 2 years of study at Oxford University only. The NIH OxCam, which would support a doctoral degree in an NIH-related field at Oxford or Cambridge, and you could do that as a standalone doctoral degree or as part of an MD PhD. Gates Cambridge, which is any graduate degree at Cambridge University. And if you're a STEM student, you could also apply for the Churchill, which is for a 1-year STEM master's degree at Cambridge as well. It's not uncommon for people to apply to multiple of these awards in a given cycle as well, because they are fairly similar in their selection criteria and eligibility. Coming up in March, we're going to be hosting a British tea event, which is, we are quite honest about that. There'll be tea available and the sort of food one might have at an afternoon tea. But the focus of that event would be a panel of previous winners. So these are ASU faculty and administrators who actually have won Rhodes and Marshall scholarships. So you'll get to hear about their experiences of winning these major awards. Through March and into April, we expect to be taking intake meetings with you if you're interested in this. And our first deadline would be August 1, where you have to declare your intent to apply. Our campus deadline is in mid-August, and all of the deadlines are towards the end of September, first week of October. So again, we expect multiple drafts. We expect you to be working heavily with us on those since they are so competitive. There are a number of other awards. Increasingly, every year, it seems more fellowships that provide full support for international graduate study, which I think is becoming normalized a bit. You know, we typically the gold standard for graduate education in the world was the US, but we're increasingly seeing more internationally focused graduate degree programs abroad. English language instruction is starting to become the norm in the world, and so that really increases opportunities for students who are interested in expanding the horizons, developing that cultural competency. New program just launched last year is the McCall-McBain Scholarship at McGill University, if that's not confusing enough. It's pretty much like the Gates Cambridge, where you can pursue any graduate degree you want at McGill, which is an outstanding research university in Montreal. One of that, along with University of Toronto, are considered two of the world's leading universities in Canada. We had several applicants for that and a couple of finalists for that. But last year was the first year it was offered to non-Canadians. Very cool. Schwarzman Scholarship and Yenching Academy Scholarship are both for master's degrees in China studies. One is at Tsinghua University and the other one's at Peking University. Slightly different programs offered by different award sponsors with slightly different purposes, but they are sort of in a friendly competition because they're both in Beijing, right? Jessica Haken, pictured here, was a winner in the first cohort of that 5 years ago for Schwarzman, and we've had winners for the Yenching Academy Scholarship as well. So the thing to know is you don't have to be an expert on China. You don't even have to speak Chinese, right? Jessica didn't speak any, but you have to be willing to consider or think deeply about how China relates to your topic of interest, right? So Jessica was very interested, as an accountancy major, was very interested in the financial side of the nonprofit sector. How do nonprofits operate? Where do they get their funding? How do they take care of their business operations? And so she was really interested in the way in which global nonprofits operate within China. The Fulbright U.S. student program, as I mentioned, the graduate degree awards, increasingly, I don't have a count on the total number, but almost every country that participates in Fulbright would allow you to propose graduate study as your project, and many countries actually have graduate degree awards specific to a university within that country. And so every year we have several students winning graduate degree awards through Fulbright. I've also included a couple of awards that are actually in the US, so they're not global in that way, but they are global in that the cohort is international, meaning that the fellowships are open to students from all over the world. So the Knight Hennessy Scholarship, which is at Stanford, if you become a member of that cohort, you would actually be in that program with students from all four corners of the earth. Same goes with the McDonald International Scholars, which is a very similar program at Washington University in St. Louis, another outstanding world-leading research university. So, and then some more practical programs. CBYX, the Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange Program for Young Professionals, is actually the full name of this one. I actually just sat on one of the final selection committee interviews for this as a committee member. It's an actual collaborative program between the US Congress and the German Bundestag. And so it's operated by Cultural Vistas, which is a subcontractor for the Department of State. And essentially you spend a year in Germany, right? And so even if you don't speak German, you'll participate in language study. If you already speak some German, you'll speak better German by the time you're done. 1 semester of academic study in Germany, and then 5 months in a professional internship placement following that. So it's a combination of language study, academic preparation, ambassadorship, and ambassadorial work, and then professional development. They don't necessarily care what year of study you are, but you just have to be between ages of 18 and a half and 24. And if you have anybody younger that would be interested in something like this, they actually do a high school version, which is kind of cool. November 1 is the deadline, and obviously we're right at the tail end of the selection process because I just participated in interviews. We've had at least one winner of this every year in the last 5 or 6 years. And so again, we can connect you with alumni if you're interested. Another new one, again, I'll put on here because I don't have a winner profile to show you here, because the Luce Scholars Program just recently changed its eligibility criteria, so it's open to all students, not just partner institutions. This would be a great experience for anyone who would love to have an immersive professional experience in Asia, but doesn't have that much experience in Asia. One of the criteria is that you can't apply to go to a country where you have any significant previous experience. And it includes Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, all parts, right? So not just Korea, not just Japan, anything in Asia. You can apply as a graduating senior or as a recent graduate. Anything within the last 3 years is fine, and we're happy to help you with this one. It's actually a fairly old fellowship. It's been around since the 40s, but this is the first time that ASU students have been able to apply for it. The Pickering, Rangel, and Payne fellowships technically don't fund an international experience, but if you want to be a foreign service officer or work for USAID, if you want to work for, Department of State careers, this is the one for you. They do provide very generous funding of up to $30,000 for a master's degree leading to relevant to a career in Department of State. And yeah, you do get 2 internships, one in DC and then another one at a foreign post, commission or embassy or consulate abroad. So you do get to travel with this. And obviously as a foreign service officer, you'd be traveling a lot. So again, their strong preferences for folks who come from communities or represent communities that have historically been excluded from the Department of State career, which is a very broad definition because the Department of State had been very homogenous for decades and decades and decades. And so chances are good that you represent a community that has not been represented well at the Department of State. And they're increasing the number of awards every year. And so several other new programs include, the Foreign Service Fellowship Program. I actually, if you're on the bulletin, I just sent out information about this yesterday. If you're in IT, they are looking for people in cybersecurity or information technology to work for the Department of State, and you would get posted at embassies abroad. And if you're, the USDA even has an agricultural policy focused program as well. So these are all pretty new programs, and I think all pretty exciting. And then to round out, there's a large number of teaching fellowships available. And so these aren't necessarily for people who have a background in teaching or who aspire to be teachers, but they're looking for people that are willing to be good ambassadors, native English speakers, willing to take the training to be an English teacher. So as I mentioned, Fulbright, that's one half of what they do. Another program that we've worked with is JET, the Japanese Exchange and Teaching Program. That one's fun because you can actually apply as an athletic coach as well. China has an English teaching program. Spain has one. France has one. A lot of different countries, government sponsor English teaching programs. And then finally, Princeton is a umbrella organization that funds a program in Asia, funds programs in Latin America and in Africa. Been around since the early 1900s. You don't have to be a Princeton student to go, but it was started by Princeton students, which is why it has that name. So that's a combination of teaching, could also include some internships in professional placements as well. So yeah, a lot of information, right? And I just wanted to highlight a few of the programs that I think would be of great interest to ASU students looking for global experiences. But the first thing is focus on the objective. Am I looking to continue my education? Am I looking to gain professional experience? Do I just need to increase my language proficiency? Am I going to be somebody who wants to work internationally later, and therefore spending significant time abroad would be professional development, right? Once we figure that out, we can figure out, what are some appropriate venues. Take a look at our database, make a list, look at other databases as well. There are other fellowship advising databases out there, and just start making a note of, okay, what's my timeline looking like here? So if I'm a sophomore and I want to apply for Fulbright, when do I really seriously need to get working? The answer is now, right? It always helps to talk to us about future plans, because then we can start to put together a strategy. And I do think it's helpful as well, whenever possible, to read the profiles of the people who win these awards. And that will help give you a sense of the types of candidates whom they're seeking. It is a little intimidating sometimes because they are going to sound amazing, but it does help you figure out if you're looking at the right program or not. You can reach out to me with specific questions about any of the awards we talked about today. Once you've identified some fellowships, what I don't find terribly useful is if people just email me and say, hey, can you tell me what fellowships I can apply for, right? And I don't know anything about you yet. We'll get to know about you hopefully as we move into the process, but it's most helpful if you have a few target programs in mind, and then we can work from there. It's also helpful if you send resume and transcripts when you contact us. And when you're ready to make an advising appointment, you can do that right through our website. this is a great time to finish up the school year strong and start making a plan for summer, particularly if you're looking at any of the postgraduate awards that we talked about today. If you're a rising senior finishing up your junior year, now is the time to really get started on these programs. So again, thank you very much for your time and attention. Everything you need is available through the ONSA website, including our YouTube page and social media channels. And as well, you can book appointments and subscribe to the listserv, get our application database. So let me pause there. Let us get our wits about us and see if anyone has any questions about anything I spoke about today or anything else. See, I can't tell if anyone's pondering or not, but. Well, if your question is very complicated or you think of a question later, as I said, you can email me directly with that question. That is our essential function at ONSA, is to answer your questions, to make sure you have all the information you need to succeed. Don't ever think that you're intruding on us by asking questions. I mean, that's why we exist. So again, we're happy to provide advising on any of these programs. And if you discover other programs that you think would fall under this category, feel free to bring them to us, and that's happened in the past. So we'll get last call for questions before I let us all go for the rest of this Friday. Well, wonderful. I appreciate it. Thank you all for your time and attention. For those of you that have been to more than one of these, I don't know if any of us have been to all four. I'll have to think of a prize of some kind for those of you that have been to all four of the Fellowships Friday sessions. But at any rate, have a great weekend. Have a great rest of your term. Hopefully we'll see you at one of our future sessions or in the office as you're getting ready to apply for one of these great awards. So thank you all very much.